Salam alaikum. Welcome to today's weekly Sohbet and Dhikr on this Thursday, the 15th of July 2021. I hope you are well, wherever you are tuning into this from. And also aware that we are still living in challenging times. And there's still a long way to go before we get back to normality of some kind. But alhamdulillah. Oh, alaikum salam. So what shall we discuss today? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Through the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and my sheikhs, I hope to be able to share some little something of wisdom or insights with you. Earlier today, you might have seen I posted Sohbet, a written version of a Sohbet of one of Maulana Sheikh Nazim's Sohbets from the 1980s. And in this Sohbet, Maulana was discussing something which I thought was actually is more relevant today actually than when Maulana Sheikh Nazim wrote this back in the 1980s. And it's to do with appetites and indulgence. You see, today's world is very much focused on chasing pleasures. Whether this started in the West or not, it is now something which is international. People are taught from when they're at school that to be successful is to live a pleasurable life, chasing pleasures of one form or another. And Maulana Sheikh Nazim makes a very interesting discussion on this, where he said that with these people, what he likes to discuss, or maybe he did some degree of demonstration at some point, who knows, is a jar of honey. Give the person a jar of honey. There you go. Honey is delicious and sweet. I suppose instead of honey, you could use anything. You could use baklava. Baklava, absolutely delicious. I love baklava. You could use Turkish delight. Anything like this, which is sweet and delicious. But Maulana used the example of a jar of honey and said, eat it. Here, I'll give you a jar of honey. Now you eat one jar of honey. Delicious. And then Maulana says, I'll give you another jar of honey. And you might eat this. And then gave another jar of honey. And the person says, well, maybe it's overindulging, but since you offer, I will eat the jar of honey. Then the fourth jar of honey, and the person says, well, I can't manage any more honey. But you show them the stick and say, you eat my honey. Now, out of the threat of the stick, the person may eat another jar of honey, or maybe another couple of jars of honey. But then it's, oh, really couldn't eat any more honey. And then if you show them a gun, maybe they'll eat some more honey. But even if you show them a gun, after another couple of jars of honey, they'll really be like, oh, please just shoot me. It would be like torture. And then Maulana says, you would sooner die than eat more of this delicious honey. It's just delicious honey. And this is a very beautiful way of explaining about the nafs, which is what we're all struggling with in this life. It's we desire things, and desire, it is normal, and it is part of the human condition. But we have to have some moderation in that. Even my mum said when I was little, and my mum's not a Muslim, but she said that we should be moderate in things. Everything in moderation. That's what mum always said. still says everything in moderation. Even something as good for you as apples. Apples are really good for you. But if you ate too many apples, it would still cause you problems. Probably even lettuce would. Normal amount of eating lettuce. I mean, lettuce is not something that most people want to go and eat loads of. But I mean, even if you did, there would come a point where you just wouldn't be able to eat it. Or if you did, it would cause you problems. Even something as good for you as lettuce. So what about the bad things? And often the things that we find most enjoyable aren't good for us. Even case in point, honey. Honey is actually good for us in moderate amounts. But honey is also 99% sugar. So it's like, even though honey has a benefit in it, I mean, it's even discussed in the Quran. Even though honey has a benefit in it, if you eat too much honey, even honey, it will become bad for you. And also honey is 99% sugar. So, I mean, how much can you really eat before it's going to have a harmful effect on you? It's still sugar. The good things in it are in minute amounts. So something to think about. I mean, a lot of the things which we most enjoy, we can only enjoy in small amounts, and they're most enjoyable when we have them occasionally. I mean, candy, baklava, things like this are a case in point. I mean, if you eat them occasionally, they're really delicious. If you are eating them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then alaikum salam. If you're eating them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then you're going to end up getting fat, you get ill, it will cause a lot of problems. But in moderation, occasionally, they are actually really enjoyable and possibly even recommended to have at least sometimes, because we should be able to enjoy things. And this goes for all aspects of our lives. Clothes. It's nice to have nice clothes. It's actually beneficial to have nice clothes. But at the same time, how much are you going to spend on those clothes? Well, why I mention this? Well, the amount of money you spend on your clothes is the amount of work that you have to do in order to get those clothes. I mean, today I'm wearing a polo shirt. I have a lot of polo shirts like this. I quite like polo shirts, you might have noticed. Now, this polo shirt is just a generic brand. There is no brand on it. And it's just comfortable to wear as my, I've got, thinking the brands now, it's, my mind's gone blank. That's funny. But yeah, it's just comfortable to wear as like a Ralph Lauren polo shirt, or any of them, like, any of these sports brands polo shirt. And I have a few that have branding on. It doesn't really bother me too much one way or the other. I tend to go on whether I actually like the shirt. Whenever I buy clothes, I always look at the quality of the material, because that's what I'm wearing. The look, how it looks, how it feels on me, if it feels comfortable as well. Material, I mean, is it made of cotton, or is it made of something which is not necessarily as comfortable to wear? So I look for these kind of qualities rather than looking for whether it has a particular brand on it. And you will notice, if it is branded, literally the same shirt that might even be made in the same factory in Bangladesh, it's 3 or 4 times the price or more than one which is plain like this. It's probably made in the same factory. Literally, this shirt says it's made in Bangladesh. I've got other shirts which are branded. They say they're made in Bangladesh. I bought those shirts from a sports shop, and they cost me more than this shirt. I mean, I got them in an offer, so I got them at a discount, but they cost me more than this shirt. And yet they're probably made in the same factory. They're probably made of exactly the same cotton, maybe even made by exactly the same team of workers. And if not, they're still made in the same country and to pretty much the same standard. But today, people are chasing a label on a shirt. Why? Why do you chase having something that's got a label on it rather than an item that looks virtually identical, that doesn't have the label on it and is of a cheaper price? Why are you following the label? You see, when you do this, you're just spending money on a brand. Now, what does that brand do? I mean, fair enough, if that brand sponsors, a charitable cause and is feeding the homeless or feeding the hungry in somewhere like Uganda, then yes, by all means, if that's where the money's going, spend more on it. If you know that they're looking after the workers better and you've got good evidence that that company, it pays its workers more, so you know where the money's going, it's going to the workers, fair enough. But if it's just for a label that says Reebok or Nike or one of these brands, and it's probably made in exactly the same factory or a factory next door to it by same people who are paid the same wage, and it's made of the same sort of material, why pay 4 or 5 times the price for it? You see, people have been conditioned that that is a better product because it's got a name on it. It's just a name. And it's also part of showing off, because if people see a label and they see that it's got a particular label on it and that label is more expensive, then it's showing off, I have more money than you, so I'm wearing a more expensive shirt than you. This comes from nafs, this comes from ego, it is part of showing off. This is something that, I was going to say our religion as Muslims, but actually all religions generally speak against. That we should not be showing off our wealth and saying, look, hey, look at me, I have more than you. Because when we do this, if there is a poorer person there who can't even afford, maybe he's got secondhand shirts that he's got from a charitable shop, because that's all they can afford. And they look at you wearing your, Versace suit that's got a nice little stylish label on it. How are they going to feel? It's something that we should be careful of. On the other hand, it's true, there is a time and a place. It's like if you're going to a particular business function where that is expected that you're going to go in something like that, and that's the sort of people you're mixing with, and you're there for good business. It's not just for showing off. It's part of the whole scene at that particular venue. Then fair enough. But it's like, if you just even sports clothes, it's like the casual stuff like this, but you're wearing something which is 10 times the price as what everybody else is wearing. One, it's a waste of your money, because really you're just getting the same items as everybody else with a label stitched on it. And two, it's going to make people feel bad who can't afford it. Within Islam, we are advised to do things in a more simple way, not to show off too much. Today, actually, everybody shows off too much. If we follow what the Prophet Muhammad Sunnah was, his example. I remember I was listening to Sheikh there once. It might even have been Sheikh Mohammed Adil. And he was talking about how people sit in restaurants, expensive restaurants. Just sitting in an expensive restaurant and eating on the street, and everybody can see you're eating in an expensive restaurant. This sheikh was saying it's not a good thing to do, because there are people that were living in the same city who they are starving. And they will see these people eating in this fine restaurant and maybe only eating a little bit of the food and wasting the rest. And they can't even afford to feed themselves. They are relying on handouts just to feed themselves. And the Sheikh was actually saying that this is actually bad manners within Islam. It's not something which you should really do. And yet it is something we all do in this world today. It's part of the culture. We all eat in restaurants. In fact, I myself, I enjoy eating in a cafe or a restaurant. Perhaps in the UK, it's not so bad because a lot of people have access to it. But it's something which we should think about. We don't think about that. And this is it's something. It's from our ego. We're so in today's world. We're wrapped up in just chasing after things which are luxuries. And we wonder why there are so many depressed people in society today that they feel there's no meaning in their life. You see, the way much of our economic systems are set up in the world today and our cultures is they're set up that our life is about chasing luxuries. That, for a lot of people, is the meaning of their life. It's what they enjoy, what they can chase, what they can buy. And so they chase more, they work harder to chase money, spending more and more hours of their time earning money to spend not on things which they really need or just looking after their family, or on, not, which I'm not saying anything against any of that, or helping their extended family or community or things like this, but just for chasing luxuries. And the other thing is, once you get used to it, my wife was saying this earlier, it's like if someone gets used to driving a BMW, they would not drive a Citroen. Should they buy another car afterwards? They would not buy a Citroen. Because they're used to the BMW. They're used to having a very fancy luxury car. In reality, a smaller, inexpensive car would do most of the things they need and get them from A to B. I'm not saying anything wrong with owning a BMW if you can afford it, but it's the thing that we get used to things that are luxury, and then once you get used to something, you can't step back from that because you've got used to that mode of existence. So you're actually not really enjoying it any more than someone who's, in this particular case, only owned a smaller, less expensive car and enjoys that car. Or someone who can't afford, to have the more expensive shirts, but enjoys the shirts that they wear and they're comfortable in them. Or someone who they buy good quality, nice food, but they get it a more reasonable price and can't afford to go to the expensive restaurants. But once you get used to that kind of thing, just as I was saying, I enjoy going to cafes. I mean, in my case, I gave up, many years ago, going drinking and, other things. So cafes kind of took the place for me. I like sitting down with the coffee in a cafe. And it is, truth be told, it's overpriced coffee and overpriced cakes. But that's my little enjoyment. That's something that I enjoy doing. But at the same time, it is a luxury. Not everybody can afford that, even in this country. Even I can't afford it all the time. And how much do we put in expense into those sort of things that we could be spending on something better? And once we get used to that, it all sort of builds up. And instead of spending at this level, Our normal spending is at this level, and we're not actually enjoying it any more than a person who's used to living their life at this level. And if that's for us, you can imagine for the super rich people in the world, it's the same for them. They, you know, if they had to suddenly live how most of us live tomorrow on a similar income, it would actually kill them. They literally couldn't cope with it because they've got so used to living at this sky-high level, having billions. You know, for them, you know, buying a company is pocket money. If they suddenly had to experience life as a normal middle-class person, let alone anybody else, they wouldn't be able to cope. And this is why our sheikhs, the Prophet Muhammad and Islam, about all religions, have cautioned against this. And, you know, if we do notice we have a lot of luxuries in our life, to try to see what we can reduce, what we can cut down on a bit, and put that money to some better use. Just analyze what we're actually doing. You know, a lot of us are actually, we've got an income which we can live quite comfortably on. And yet many of us are struggling because we're spending money on things that we don't need to be spending so much money on, or don't even need to be spending money on at all. And this creates hardship for us. So something to be aware of. And it goes beyond money as well, because it's not just the money itself, it's the amount of time we spend, the amount of effort we're actually exerting on things which we don't really need. And this affects our happiness within our life, because the ideal is not to be overindulging. Just going back to the story at the beginning, Maulana Sheikh Nazim told about the honey. A little bit of honey sometimes is delicious. To have that little bit of honey in our life is a blessing. But if we overindulge in it, what is initially a blessing will actually just become sickly. And it will no longer be pleasing or enjoyable for us. So it's important to find that balance and moderation, so that we can find a state where we're contented. That doesn't mean we have to be happy all of the time, like ecstatically happy, but you can actually find a contentment, a certain happiness, which is just enjoying normal things and seeing the beauty in everyday moments. Like I'm noticing the sun coming through the window now, and it's just shining off the wardrobe and the wall, and it's beautiful. You don't have to pay for that. This is just a gift from Allah. I didn't even intend to mention it, but it's catching my eye. It's beautiful. And enjoying little things like this, instead of thinking that all our enjoyment has to come from things that cost a lot of money, and ultimately create us more stress than what they're worth. I hope you find that interesting and beneficial. If there's anything, I thank my sheikhs and Prophet Muhammad and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for any good in what I say, and the mistakes are all my own. Bismillah. We begin the Before we start any kind of activity, we should always check our intentions. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. نويت الأبين، نويت الرسل، نويت الكوى، نويت الاتكاء، نويت السلوك، نويت رياضة لله تعالى في هذا جميل. I intend to perform the 40 days of retreat. I intend to retreat in isolation. I intend to retreat in solitude. I intend to perform the retreat. I intend to follow the path. I intend to perform the spiritual practices for Allah, the highest in his place of worship. Worship your Lord until he grants you certainty. O Allah, make this our endeavor easy for us and grant us success in that which you love and which pleases you. Make us to be followers of your most noble Sharia, your beloved and chosen Prophet. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Ameen. Peace be upon all emissaries, especially the master of emissaries, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Praise be to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. Ameen. We can begin the Dhikr with the recitation of the Kalama Shahada. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. We seek Allah's forgiveness through the recitation of Astaghfirullah, which means I seek Allah's forgiveness. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Astaghfirullah, 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 astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب عليه إنه هو التواب الرحيم يا مسبب الأسباب يا مفاتيح الأبواب يا مقلب القلوب والأبصار يا دنيا المستخيرين يا غيظ المستخيرين يا حي يا قيوم يا ذو الجلال والإكرام وأفوض أمري الله إن الله بصير بالعباد Rabbi Tasrifa. Direct your heart to the heart of your Shaykh. through your sheikhs, through the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, through the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, through the Divine Presence. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. صلوات الشكر. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. ألم نشرح لك الشريف. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعناك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعناك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعناك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعناك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعناك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا لك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم نشرح لك صدرك ووضعنا لك وزرك الذي أنقض ظهرك ورفعنا لك ذكرك فإن مع العسر يسرا إن مع العسر يسرا فإذا فرغت فانصب وإلى ربك فارغب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إخلاص الشريف قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فاتحة الشريفة الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين بسم الله صلوات الشريفة اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim ala Musli ala Muhammad wa ala Ali Muhammad wa sallim. Bismillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربي هديتني من الملك ورحمتني من توالي حديث فاطر السماوات والأرض أنت ولي في الدنيا والآخرة توفاني مسلما وألحقني بالصالحين آمنا بالله صدق الله العظيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين إلا شرف نبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وصحبه الكرام وإلى وحي أنبياء والمرسلين وكرماء شرعين وإلى إماتي أبواب وإلى مسيحنا في تاريخ نقشبندية تياريا قصتان إلى آريك وجغان الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Salam. There is no God except the God. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, 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 la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, alayhi salatullah. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, alayhi salatullah. La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, alayhi salatullah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadan Nabi Allah, alayhi salatullah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadan Nabi Allah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadan Nabi Allah, alayhi salatullah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadun Shafi Allah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Shafi Allah, alayhi salatullah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Illa shirafi nabi sallallahu wa alihi wa sahbihi kiram wa ila wahi sahibi saratina wa siddiqiyuna fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Dhikr Jalala, remembrance of God. Allah, 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 Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Hak, 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 hak. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Hay, 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 hey, 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 hey. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim. Allahu Allah Hak, 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 Allahu Allah Hai, 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 Allah Hai Ya Qayyum, 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 Allah Hai Ya Qayyum. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakeel, la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. Calling on the beautiful names of Allah. Yahu, Yahu, Yadai. Yahu, Yahu, Yadai. Yahu, Yahu, Yadai. Allah, Yahu, Yadai. Yadai, 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 Ya Allah. Yadai, 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 Ya Allah. Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Allah. Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Halim, Ya Allah. Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Allah. Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Hafiz, Ya Allah. Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Allah. Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Latif, Ya Allah. Ya Grappa, Ya Grappu, Ya Grappa, Ya Grappu, Ya Grappa, Ya Grappu, Ya Grappa, Ya Grappu, Ya Sata, Ya Fata, Ya Sata, Ya Fata, Ya Sata, Ya Fata, Ya Sata, Ya Fata. Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Allah. Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Mujib, Ya Allah. Ya Mu'in, Ya Mu'in, Ya Mu'in, Ya Allah. Ya Mu'in, Ya Mu'in, Ya Mu'in, Ya Allah. Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Allah. Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Mughith, Ya Allah. Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, Ya Wadud, ya Allah, ya Wadud, ya Wadud, ya Wadud, ya Allah, ya Rahman, ya Rahim, ya Rahman, ya Rahim, ya Rahman, ya Rahim, ya Rahman, ya Rahim, ya Rahim, ya Karim, ya Rahim, ya Karim, ya Rahim, ya Karim, ya Rahim, ya Karim, ya Hanan, ya Manan, ya Hanan, ya Manan, ya Hanan, ya Manan, ya Hanan, ya Manan, ya Dayan, ya Subhan, ya Dayan, ya Subhan, ya Dayan, ya Subhan, ya Dayan, ya Subhan, ya Subhan, ya Sultan, ya Subhan, ya Sultan, ya Subhan, ya Sultan, ya Subhan, ya Sultan. Ya Sultan, 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 Ya Allah, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Allah, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Aman, Ya Allah, Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Allah, Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Salam, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, 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 Ya Allah. Ya Allah, 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 Ya Allah. Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. أزبر ذا ولي وكي ونقول والله قوة إلا بالله الذي العظيم. صلوات الشريفة اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم. 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد وسلم 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 اللهم صل أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم صل أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم في أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم اللهم فز أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم انصر أمة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. ارحمنا يا راحمين، ارحمنا. يا ارحمنا راحمين، كفو عنا. يا ارحمنا راحمين، يا غفار الذنوب، يا ستار العيوب، يا فاتح القلوب. اللهم اسقنا غيث سقيا رحمة، ولا تجعلنا من قنة. آمين آمين آمين. والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. لا إله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد، يحيي ويميت وهو الحي دائما، وهو الحي دائما لا يموت بقدره خير، وهو على كل شيء قدير. صلي ربي وسلم على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى كل أجمعين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. على أشرف الأمين سيدنا محمد صلوات سلام عليه. على أفضل الأمين سيدنا محمد صلوات سلام عليه. على خالد الأمين سيدنا محمد صلوات سلام عليه. صلوات الله وبركاته وأنبيائه ورسوله وجميع خلقه على محمد وعلى آل محمد عليه وعليهم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. ورضي الله تبارك وتعالى عن سادتنا أصحاب رسول الله أجمعين، وعن تابعين بهم بإحسان، وعن إمة مجتهدين المدين، وعن علماء المتقين، وعن أولياء الصالحين. أما شيخين في تاريخ النقشبندية آرية قد استدعوا تراهم زاكية، ونورا ترى أدرات مباركة، وتضاعوا ترى علينا من بركاتهم وفيوداتهم دائما، والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين، اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. Oh Allah, shower your blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his noble family, his noble ancestors and his noble descendants, and especially the household of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Ahlul Bayt, the Sahaba Ikram, the Khilafah al-Rashidin, the Ulama, the Uliya, the previous prophets, the especially my sheikhs, Sufi Abdullah and Maulana Sheikh Nazimi Allah, raise their stations in your divine presence and bless their souls for all eternity. Ya Allah, shower your blessings upon Sheikh Sharif Hidayatullah, all of the Wali Songo, Sheikh Yusuf, my beloved father, Richard Kevin Armstrong, Sheikh Gusto, Sheikh Adan Badruddin, and Sheikh Didi. Bless their souls and raise their stations in your divine presence. Ya Allah, shower your blessings upon our mothers and our fathers, our brothers and our sisters, our aunties and uncles, our nieces and nephews, and especially our beloved wives or husbands, our children, our grandchildren, and Ya Allah, grant your divine protection and blessing upon our families. Grant our families to be in good health and well-being. Grant us long lives. Grant us to be always under your hidayat, always under your divine guidance. always connected through those who love you to the Prophet Muhammad and to your divine presence. Always to be among those who are sheltered under the cloak of the Prophet Muhammad on the day of reckoning. Ya Allah, shower this blessing also upon all our friends, especially those friends who have been with us through difficult times, those truest of friends. But bless all of our friends and bless everyone in our communities and bless everyone in our human family, including our enemies. Ya Allah, forgive our enemies. Bless our enemies with guidance. Bless our enemies with forgiveness and guidance, and turn their hearts towards you. Ya Allah, though they know it not, although they realize it not, they are still our brothers and sisters in our human family. So Ya Allah, we pray for everybody, our families, our friends, everyone in our human family, including our enemies. Ya Allah, bless all the communities of life on this earth and grant us the inspiration and guide our actions that we may make this a beautiful world for everyone, a blessed world for everyone, for all the communities of life on this earth. And that we may be people who are successful in our struggle with our nafs, that we may transcend our nafs, and we may be people who are connected to you, Allah, throughout our lives, and looking forward to returning to you on that day of reckoning. And we pray that for us and everyone we love, that reckoning will be less of a reckoning and more of a blessing and more of a reuniting, a marriage back with you, Allah, in the divine presence, a return to the source, a happy return, a joyous return. Ya Allah, help us all while we're still alive in this life to rectify ourselves so that we may be in that beautiful position on that day and not among those for whom it will be us torturing ourselves as we remember the things that we did in this life. Ya Allah, please forgive and guide us and support us. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل لا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. صل يا ربي وسلم على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين والكل أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إلى حضرات النبي وآله وأصحابه الكرام وإلى أرواح سائر صلاتنا والصديقيون وإلى كرماء شرعين وأرواح مشايخنا في تاريخ النقشبندية هذه كستان الروحي أمام تاريخ وغوثي كذلك الشعب ودين نقشبند ومد الويسي البكاري وإلى مولانا الشيخ عبد الله فياض الداغستاني وإلى زند بيا وإلى الصوفي عبد الله وإلى مولانا الشيخ نازم اللكاني وإلى قسطو وإلى الشيخ دانغ بدر الدين وإلى الشيخ ديدك وإلى الشيخ هشام كباني وإلى الشيخ بادشاه وإلى الشيخ حبيب الله وإلى الشيخ داود مرسروين وإلى الشيخ محمد الدين وإلى الشيخ نور كباني وإلا الصيب سرتينا وسدكيون الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. And with that, this session comes to a close. I wish you all a very good evening if you're in the United Kingdom or in Europe, and wherever you are in the world. I wish look out for my Friday reflections tomorrow. And if you find these videos useful and you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to my Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube channels so that you can be kept up to date with the latest videos. I wish you all the very, very best. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.